Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm your host, Naresh Vissa, along with Adam Schrader. Thanks again to all our homies, homegirls, homeboys, home trans, everyone out there listening to us. We have an awesome guest on our show today. He's a #1 New York Times bestselling author, multiple #1 New York Times bestselling author. I've read a few of his books. I've watched an adaptation of one of his books called Way of the Peaceful Warrior, a book that changes lives. It was turned into a successful movie. His name is Dan Millman. He's the author of the newly revised 25th anniversary edition of The Life You Were Born to Live, a guide to finding your life purpose. And he's also the New York Times bestseller of The Hidden School, Return of the Peaceful Warrior, in addition to Everyday Enlightenment, The 12 Gateways to Personal Growth, also The 4 Purposes of Life, Finding Meaning and Direction in a Changing World, and finally, the book The Creative Compass, Writing Your Way from Inspiration to Publication. Like I said, multiple New York Times bestselling author. We're going to talk about all of these books during the next few episodes. And he's also the former director of gymnastics at Stanford University. So without further ado, Dan Millman, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Hi, Naresh and Adam. Glad to be here with you today.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, so before we get into how we can deal with the recession we're in, the post-pandemic lives that we're going to be living, I shared a bit about your background, but I want you to share a little bit more. How did you go from, I guess, professional gymnast to #1 spiritual writer?
Well, it's a timely question because my current book project I'm working on is a memoir. So the challenge will be not to tell you too much. Let me just give a brief summary that as a young athlete, trampolinist, and gymnast, I was focused on how to develop talent, if that were possible, to develop or improve talent for sports. And that was my focus through my competitive career at UC Berkeley way back when, and at Stanford University when I was coaching. And I was pretty successful in that area of creating talent, actually improving people's ability to learn faster and easier and rise to higher levels through a particular kind of physical training. But the physical training, eventually I started looking beyond that because being able to do somersaults and cartwheels didn't really help me when I went out on a date or got married or had children or dealt with financial challenges and those issues of everyday life. So that's when I started asking bigger questions. How can we create talent, not just for sport, but talent for living? And that idea of certain skill sets that were not really taught in school, and today we call them life hacks or various techniques and approaches. That led me around the world, studying with various mentors, and I'm going to be writing about that, of course, in my forthcoming book, which won't be out for at least a year, I think. But that led me on a search, which we could call spiritual search because it's about for life's bigger picture. And I wanted to really get a sense of life in the context of here on Earth. What are we doing here, and what are we here to do? So a lot of my work is wrapped around purpose, as you indicated in some of the books that I've written. So that was my transition from athlete and coach into life's bigger picture. And, I have friends who are still coaching today. They're very good coaches, and that was fine for them. But I always had this restlessness and a sense of disillusion with whatever I was doing. What's more? What's out there? Maybe some people share that. So that took me on my own journey, and I met some mentors who were guides and guideposts along the way.
So you mentioned kind of finding your purpose, and I get that everybody wants to find their purpose, but in order to really find your purpose, you have to kind of reach a peace with yourself and understand yourself. What are some of the ways that people can kind of reach kind of a point in their life where they're even ready to find their purpose? Like, what are some of the tips you have for a day-to-day thing that people can do to kind of get themselves in a mindset where they could even consider doing that?
Good question. You probably are aware that there were two words, at least translated, two words written over the temple of the Oracle at Delphi in ancient Greece. And they've resonated through every culture since then. And those two words were know thyself. And many of us
I say that all the time.
Well, yeah, and because every tradition, every spiritual, religious, and wisdom tradition agrees on that. It's better to know yourself than not. Now, why? Why do we need to know ourselves? Well, first of all, it's so easy for humans to rationalize and develop a persona, and develop this self-image rather than authenticity of who we really are. Now, in response to your question of self-knowledge, the reason we want to know it is if we don't really know ourselves, we end up making the right decision for the wrong person, the one we thought we were. And that happens when people get married really young sometimes and they realize that's not really who I am. Or as Joseph Campbell said, we climb to the top of our professional ladder and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall, that maybe we're not cut out to be an attorney or whatever it is we chose. Because it takes time to learn to know ourselves. We have to be tested in the cauldron of the real world. It's so difficult during my college years, to really for me to know who I was, because I was still developing that sense of identity, and trying to sort out what I really wanted rather than what I thought other people wanted me to do, or what would be good to do. And very specifically, in response to the question, Adam, self-knowledge is too broad a category. It really comes down to three things. What are my values? And that takes a while. What are my interests? Distinct from shoulds or oughts. What do I really want to do? And what are my talents? We have to find out what we're not good at before we find out what we are good at. Sometimes we never even thought about something, then we discover a talent in ourselves. So it's not enough to have talent if we don't have an interest, or even have a talent and interest in something if it doesn't match our values. So those three things, values, talents, and interests, are the specifics of self-knowledge that can help guide us through our lives.
Sticking to the topic of purpose, what would you say we are here to accomplish on our life's journey? Just anyone in general.
Well, a sage once told me, reminded me, that we cannot control outcomes in life. We can control our efforts, though. And by making a good effort, we increase the odds of getting our desired outcomes over not making the effort. Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, said, you make 0% of the shots you don't take. So in a way, effort is success, because that's all we can control. So we're here to make an effort in line with our values, talents, and interests. So to say, well, we're all here to do, in terms of accomplishment, the Western promise is if you achieve, if you succeed, you'll be happy. Whereas the Eastern promise, many people get disillusioned with what they call the rat race and endless achievement. Never enough, young guys come up to me saying, man, I'm doing pretty well, but I don't think I've reached 100% of my potential. And I go, well, what if you have? What if yesterday you hit your high point? What are you going to do the rest of your life? Maybe recess? Enjoy life? So all these drivenness, achieve. So many people turn to the Eastern promise, which is all our answers lie inside. Step off the treadmill and meditate and look inside and find the spiritual answers. And many people out there will be going, well, yeah, sure. We know it's all about within, but maybe it's not. Maybe the answer is a blend of East and West. Maybe we're here to do our best in everyday life, to function and achieve, not succeed though. And I'll tell you why. We can't control success. It's not within our control, but we can control excellence. So I recommend that people strive for excellence, not for success. And if you strive for excellence, that's something we're all here to do. Our best each day, whatever it is we're doing. And so that's what I would say in response to the question, what are we all here to do? It's not about our cosmic purpose. It's more about focusing on our purpose or living purposefully, our purpose in each arising moment. So that's what I would say we're here to do. What is my purpose? You know, in the Peaceful Warrior movie, you mentioned that based on my first book, there's a revelation, a moment of revelation for young Dan. He and his mentor, Socrates, played by Nick Nolte, the old gas station attendant, they hiked to the top of this big hill, and Dan has this insight. And he said, Socrates, it's not the destination that makes us happy, but the journey. Mm-hmm. And, there's a certain wisdom. It's a nice reminder because most of our life is the journey. And yet, without a destination in mind, there is no journey. We just wander around. So that's why it's important to live purposefully. We're hardwired goal seekers. When I watch my little granddaughter crawling across the floor, she's not doing it for exercise. She's doing it to get somewhere. There's something she wants. And we never change that, really. So we need a purpose to feel absorbed and, be in the zone, the flow, all those terms. But from our point A, we need a point B. So to live purposefully and ask ourselves every now and then, what do I want right now? And move toward that. That is one of those life hacks, those keys, those life skills to live purposefully, living on purpose. In fact, that's the title of one of my other books, Living on Purpose.
What you just said reminds me of the law of Dharma, which is a Hindu philosophy, Hindu principle from the main scripture in the religion of Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita. And the law of Dharma essentially sums up what you just said. It's the idea that we live our lives fruitfully, we live it as best as we can by doing good, but also that we continue to attain knowledge, to seek knowledge, to maximize ourselves in every way possible without worrying about the results, without worrying about the end goal. It's all about the journey, because the purpose of the journey is a journey itself. And I don't know if you've studied Hinduism. It sounds like you have in some of the concepts there, but I think it's very similar and probably across many different religions as well.
Right, that's probably the wisdom of the Upanishads too. I would totally agree with that. I think it's a good insight. There are many, there's great wisdom in so many traditions. Obviously, ancient India, the traditional culture, and China, Japan, the Zen tradition, and the Sangomas of Africa, and the Kahunas of Hawaii. Every culture has its wisdom tradition. And that proves that nobody's smarter than all of us. So yes, I have been exposed to and done some study in the global heritage of spiritual traditions, which, again, I'm working on writing about now in terms of the current book project. It's of course we want to do well, but I'll tell you another thing. I grew up making my life a never-ending self-improvement project. I learned to juggle and do acrobatics and gymnastics and martial arts and speed reading and studied Trachtenberg speed mathematics, always looking for hacks and looking for ways and knowledge and to do things quicker and better and achieve more. I learned to juggle, ride a unicycle, actually when I was 60. That had to wait for some years. But one day I realized no matter how much I improved myself, only one person benefited. But if I could influence other people's lives in a positive way, that added meaning to my own and value. So that's when I made this fundamental shift. Not everyone is called to teach, to share, to influence. Some people really don't have a desire to do that, and then they shouldn't. Just continue to improve and grow and be the best person you can. But that was one difference, one shift that happened in my life.
So you were talking before about how people need to have that kind of end goal in mind, but there's a lot of people I know at least, who say, my end goal is to, have my time to myself, and I don't know, I don't really want to do anything necessarily. I want to just, be out of the rat race, but I don't know how to get there. So they have it's like a nebulous end goal. And how do you think people can best realize what their end goal actually is? Because in my opinion, your end goal can't just be, I don't want to do anything. There needs to be something there. Kind of how can people, what suggestions do you have for people to figure out what their actual end goal is?
Often that question, that search comes up from people who are burning out, who are just overloaded. Many millennials are they're really hustling all the time, trying to find their way. I have great compassion. Some of my children are that age group. Somebody came up to me once and said, Dan, why does life have to be so difficult? And I said, oh, would you like easier? You want easy? I'll tell you how to do easy. Just never be in a committed relationship or have children. And of course, don't take on any responsibilities, and live minimally, maybe a little cabin in the woods or a little trailer. And yeah, life will be simpler in a lot of ways and less difficult. And yet the question becomes, is that what you really want to do? Are we here for easy? Is that why we came to planet Earth? No, there are more efficient ways to do things. There are easier ways to accomplish our goals. However, that doesn't mean we really want easy, because daily life is a form of spiritual weight training. And if we don't lift any weights, we don't get any stronger. So there's the value of adversity and challenge.
Yeah, in talking about the kind of the end goal, I guess the actual results, I think this ties into business, because I've been in business for 7 years now, and I tell people it's not my, accelerated MBA from a top 10 business school. It's not my smarts. It's not my skills. Those all help. But I think the real key to my business's longevity and recurring cash flows has been this idea of purpose in my work, finding purpose in my work, because to me, it's not work. It's just a part of who I am. It's what I really love doing. It's what I get up in the morning, excited to do and to get in front of my computer. I think that's very important. But then also, when it comes to the results, I think I've gone through the ups, I've gone through the downs, and I just feel like you can't worry about, how much money you're going to make any given month, or, am I going to be able to make enough to retire? I think you should just maximize everything that you do, continue to stay passionate, continue to find and pursue the meaning in your work, and the results will take care of itself eventually. That's just kind of my blind spiritual mentality. What do you have to say about that and applying these principles to business and work and jobs?
Well, it sounds to me like your work matches your values, talents, and interests. That's what I'm hearing. And if it didn't,
exactly.
You'd be looking for something else. So that's why I say those three elements of testing what we do against our self-knowledge, what we know about ourselves, and that changes and grows and expands all the time. And finding suitable work. The stats that people will often have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different careers during their lifetime, not just one that they lock into. And so, because we change. And one founding principle of this approach to living I call the peaceful warrior's way is that there's no best work, there's no best book, religion, diet, teacher, exercise system, or martial art. There's just the best for each of us at a given time of our life. So it's just great to hear that you're doing what you love right now. Even though I don't think people have to love every single thing about their work. But if we find work that's suitable for us, that makes what we feel is good money while serving other people, I think that's really a key.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Work From Home Show. Everybody go check out his website, peacefulwarrior.com. That's www.peacefulwarrior.com. Also, remember to check out our website, workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. You want to send us a message, send it to hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Dan will be back with us. He'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, keep on working from home.